This is what the world was like more than 50 years ago, and you'll see it in these photos that say more than 1,000 words. Which of these images moved you the most?
Welcome to Eternal Moments. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start.
In this endearing 1970 image, we see Michelle Obama at just 6 years old, long before she became First Lady of the United States. Raised in Chicago's South Side neighborhood, her childhood was marked by discipline, study, and strong family support. This little girl's innocent smile already reflected the inner strength that would inspire millions years later. From a humble home to the White House, her story is a pure example of overcoming obstacles. This photo is the silent first chapter of a historic life. This image, taken in the early 1970s in the American Midwest, shows an everyday scene, a family on a trip to the then-new retail phenomenon called Walmart, with typical clothing of the era, metal shopping carts, and a relaxed atmosphere. The photo captures the beginning of a revolution in American consumerism. Walmart was just beginning to expand, forever changing the way people shopped. What is routine today was then novel. A simple moment at the birth of a new retail culture. In this 1970s image, we see Moondog, the eccentric New York street musician, standing on East 51st Street in his iconic Viking attire. Blind from a young age, Moondog became an urban legend, a poet, inventor, composer, and almost mythical figure in street art. He played instruments he made himself, and his compositions influenced everyone from classical to experimental jazz. Amid the bustle of Manhattan, his figure stopped time, an uncommon genius, who made the street his eternal stage. In this 1970 photograph, a young Hillary Clinton, then Hillary Rodham, peers with a serious and determined gaze, very different from that of an ordinary student, a recent graduate of Wellesley College. She was already a distinguished speaker and civil rights advocate. Her style, with large glasses and an intellectual air, reflected the strength of a generation that sought to change the world from the classroom. This image shows the beginning of a political career that would break glass ceilings, an idealistic young woman who would become a historic figure. In this powerful 1970 image, a group of Vietnam veterans march with a banner that shouts, "We won't fight another rich man's war." They are members of Vietnam Veterans Against the War, an organization formed by disillusioned soldiers who returned, scarred by violence and political deceit. They no longer carried rifles, but signs, rage, and invisible scars. Their protest was not against their country, but against those who used them as pawns. This photo symbolizes the moment when the heroes said enough was enough, and traded their uniforms for resistance. In this striking 1970 image, we see a makeshift hospital in the middle of the jungle during the Vietnam War, under filthy tarps and surrounded by mud. Military doctors struggled to save lives with minimal resources and under constant fire. The wounds were physical, but also psychological, and the atmosphere was tense, desperate, and human. There are no movie heroes here, just young people trying to survive. This field hospital is the stark reflection of an inglorious war, where every life hung by a dirty, trembling thread. In 1970, American paratrooper James Speed Hensinger took this extraordinary selfie while on duty during the Vietnam War, a rarity for the time. With his camera pointed at himself, he captured not only his young, weary face, but also the weight of a brutal conflict. Amid the heat, sweat, and daily strain, this image is a silent cry of humanity. It's not propaganda, it's personal testimony. A soldier with a gun in one hand and a camera in the other, seeking to leave more than scars. In the early hours of May 9, 1970, President Richard Nixon, sleepless, appeared unexpectedly at the Lincoln Memorial to speak with young demonstrators, protesting the recent expansion of the war into Cambodia. He had announced the bombing raids only days earlier, unleashing a wave of national anger, especially among students. This surreal scene shows an isolated president, searching for human connection amidst political and moral chaos. Young people listened to him skeptically as he spoke of soccer and philosophy. It was a disconcerting moment, where power approached, for an instant, the abyss of disenchanted youth. In 1970, New York's skyline was about to change forever with the construction of the World Trade Center, a giant symbol of power and modernity. Amidst cranes and scaffolding, thousands of workers braved the heights to erect what would be, at the time, the tallest building in the world. It was the era of architectural ambition and industrial progress. Every day marked another step toward a global icon, a tower destined to connect business and dreams. To look at that scene is to travel back to a time when the future seemed endless and promising. Robert Beck, better known as Iceberg Slim, was a dark and fascinating figure of the 1970s. Before becoming an author, he spent 24 years immersed in the world of sex trafficking and drugs in the United States, experiences he later captured in his novel Pimp, published in 1967. This work broke new ground with its brutal rawness and explicit stories that left audiences breathless. This photo captures a man who lived on the edge, transforming his dark past into powerful literature. His story is an intense journey into the harshest side of urban reality in the heart of the Deep South. This August 1970 photo captures a historic moment, Mississippi's first interracial couple, in an era marked by segregation and the struggle for civil rights. Their love defied prejudices and social barriers. This image not only shows to people, but a powerful symbol of change and courage. Their union was an act of rebellion and hope, illuminating a path toward equality in difficult times. A visual testament to the courage that transforms history. In November 1970, Yukio Mishima, renowned writer and Japanese nationalist, firmly addresses the self-defense forces in Tokyo in a tense moment, with a mixture of passion and drama. His words prelude an extreme act, his ritual of seppuku, an ancient form of samurai suicide. This image captures the intensity of a man who chose death as a protest and symbol of his convictions. Mishima left an indelible mark on Japanese culture, fusing art, politics, and tragedy in a single instant. An episode that still fascinates and baffles generations. In 1970, Istanbul was a vibrant melting pot where the ancient and the modern intertwined at every corner. This image captures the unique essence of a city bridging the continents, full of life, colors, and contrasts. Bustling streets, bazaars filled with aromas, and ancient traditions blend with the energy of a time in transformation. To look at this photo is to travel to a place where history and the present coexist in perfect harmony. A frozen moment that invites you to discover 1,000 more stories. In the midst of the turbulence of the 1970s, this brave IRA woman embodies the fierce struggle for independence and justice in Ireland. With a determined gaze and weapon in hand, she represents the courage of those who risked everything in the midst of a conflict that marked generations. Her figure challenges stereotypes and shows that war also has a female face. This photo captures not only a historic moment, but also the indomitable force of resistance, a potent symbol of courage in dark times, in the midst of the Vietnam War. This image shows a Black American soldier reading a message from the Viet Cong that strikes a chord. The poster not only denounces the violence of the conflict, but also draws a brutal parallel with the racism and oppression he experienced at home. Under the terror of the Ku Klux Klan, this moment reflects the harsh reality of fighting abroad while facing injustice at home. A powerful photo that reveals the contradictions and pain of a turbulent time. In 1970, amidst social chaos and protests against the Vietnam War, a group of hard hats construction workers took to the streets of New York to show their support for the conflict. Wearing hard hats and bearing a defiant attitude, they represented the working class, who viewed the war as a patriotic duty. This image captures the deep division of a fractured nation, where solidarity and conflict intersected at every demonstration. a vibrant moment that reflects the complexity of the times. In vibrant 1970s Tokyo, a man combines two very different worlds, the tradition of tattooing and emerging pop culture. As he receives ink on his skin, he immerses himself in the colorful pages of a comic book, showing how art and entertainment intertwine in everyday life. This photo by Martha Cooper captures an intimate and rebellious moment, where modernity challenges old norms. A reflection of a city undergoing cultural transformation. In a Hanoi cemetery in 1970. A young North Vietnamese soldier lights a cigarette for an older man, both scarred by the war and the loss of a leg. In front of them, a sign commemorates the massacre of 45 students at the hands of a U.S. bomb in 1965, a painful reminder of lives cut short. This scene, charged with humanity and solidarity, shows the invisible cost of the conflict and the resilience of those who survived, a moment that blends sadness, respect, and camaraderie amidst the horror. In 1970, a man walks with a firm step toward Harlem, a vibrant and historic neighborhood in New York. His expression reflects the mix of hope and defiance of a community fighting for its identity and rights. Harlem, the birthplace of the African-American Renaissance, was then a cultural and social hotbed in the midst of transformation. This image captures not only a physical journey, but also a symbolic journey toward vindication and change. A moment that invites us to imagine stories of struggle and dreams yet to be fulfilled. Alexander Kerensky, pictured in 1917, was a crucial figure in the turmoil of the Russian Revolution, leading the provisional government after the fall of the Tsar. Between February and October of that same year, he attempted to maintain stability in a country on the brink of chaos. However, the rise of the Bolsheviks forced him into exile, a life of exile that spanned more than 5 decades. He died in New York in 1970, far from the land he once sought to rule. This photo captures a man marked by history and political tragedy. In the 1970s, North Korea shocked the world by importing 1,000 Volvo 144 cars from Sweden, but never paid the $70 million bill. This curious act became the largest auto theft in history, with no weapons or chases, just silence and cold diplomacy. Curiously, those Swedish cars now carry journalists through the country's controlled streets, like rolling witnesses to a political mystery, a story that blends humor, daring, and the North Korean enigma. Between 1930 and 1970, many indigenous children were forced to attend residential schools run by the Canadian government and the Catholic Church, where foreign prayers and customs were imposed on them. This photo reveals a moment of cultural imposition and loss of identity, where faith was used as a tool of control. Innocent looks hide deep pain and the silent struggle to preserve their roots, an image that recalls a dark and necessary chapter in history, never to be repeated. In a tense and dramatic moment, in August 1970, James McClain threatens Judge Harold J. Haley with a pistol and a sawed-off shotgun strapped to his neck in the Marin County Courthouse. This moment captures the violence and desperation that marked a time of social and political turmoil in the United States. The image is a powerful testament to how justice and chaos collided in unexpected settings, a striking fragment that reflects the intensity of those turbulent years. Frank Sheeran, towering and feared, dominates this photo taken in a bar during the 1970s. A corrupt union official and hitman for the mob, his name is shrouded in mystery and violence, especially for his alleged involvement in the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, at 6 feet 1 inch and 250 pounds. His presence was as intimidating as his reputation. This image is a glimpse of the man behind the legend that inspired The Irishman, a shadowy figure who embodies the rawest side of power and organized crime. In April 1970, Jane Fonda became a bold symbol of resistance with her participation in FTA Free the Army, a play against the Vietnam War. Her artistic commitment extended beyond the stage, openly challenging politics and military power. This photo captures a spirited and courageous actress, ready to use her voice in the fight for peace. Fonda wasn't just acting. She was inspiring an entire generation to question the status quo. A moment charged with idealism and courage. The doctored photo of the Kent State Massacre of May 4, 1970, is a powerful reminder of how the truth can be manipulated in times of crisis. This image, altered and used in the media until 1995, changed public perception of a tragic event in which students were shot by the National Guard during a protest against the Vietnam War. Its dissemination sparked debates about journalistic ethics and the power of images to influence history. A shocking example of how reality can be distorted to serve different interests. On May 4, 1970, John Filo was in the right place with his camera in hand, capturing the tense scene between the National Guard and students protesting the escalating Vietnam War at Kent State University. His image became iconic, depicting the tension and drama just before the tragedy. In that instant, Filo captured a moment that would mark the history and hearts of a generation. The photograph he took not only documented, but also changed public perceptions of the conflict and protest. An essential visual witness to a day no one forgot. In rural Kurdistan province, Iran, around 1970, these high school students represent hope and a desire for learning amidst harsh landscapes and daily challenges. Their faces reflect curiosity and determination, showing how education finds its way even in the most remote areas. This photo captures a moment of change and possibility for a community fighting for its future. A candid portrait of youth and dreams in simple times, yet full of potential. In 1970s Poland, these schoolchildren pose with a blend of innocence and discipline that reflects the era under communist rule. Amidst uniforms and desks, education was a space where dreams and hopes were woven despite political restrictions. This image captures the everyday life of a childhood marked by routine, but also by the promise of a better tomorrow. A nostalgic glimpse into a generation that grew up amidst challenges and yearnings. Nicu Ceausescu, son of Romanian dictator Nicolae, appears in this 1970s photo shooting a bow, an image that contrasts with his dark legacy. Known for his predatory behavior, alcoholism, and gambling addiction, Nicu epitomized corruption and abuse at the top of the regime. After his father's fall, he was arrested for serious crimes, including taking children hostage. This photo shows a seemingly innocent moment, but behind it lies a story of power and decadence, a disturbing portrait of a controversial figure. In November 1970, a dead whale on a beach in Florence, Oregon, exploded in an explosion that was as unexpected as it was chaotic. Authorities, attempting to dispose of the enormous carcass, loaded it with dynamite, but the explosion sent pieces of the whale flying as far as 800 feet, one even crushing a nearby car. This curious disaster became an unforgettable anecdote and a reminder that sometimes the most drastic solutions can go horribly wrong. A gigantic explosion that blends humor, disaster, and nature in a single moment. Imagine traveling in the 1970s on the luxury Albert Tours bus, traveling the longest land route in the world, from London to Calcutta. This epic journey crossed 12 countries, from Western Europe to the heart of South Asia, crossing mountains, deserts, and diverse cultures. A weeks-long trip that combined adventure, comfort, and the magic of discovering the world without flying. This image evokes a time when travel was a profound and transformative experience. A true odyssey on wheels that today seems straight out of a movie. In Sweden, 1970, this mischievous little girl combines sweetness and daring by licking an ice cream cone while playing with a royal guard's bayonet. Her innocent gesture challenges the soldier's rigid discipline, creating a playful contrast between the seriousness of duty and childlike spontaneity. The photo captures that magical moment where childhood breaks with solemnity without losing its tenderness. A small act of rebellion that brings smiles and shows the power of innocence. A charming moment full of life and humor after an odyssey filled with tension and heroism. The Apollo 13 spacecraft heads toward its splashdown in the South Pacific Ocean on April 17, 1970. After a critical failure in space, the crew fought against the clock and adversity to return safely to Earth. This immense image captures the moment of triumph and relief, a symbol of human resilience and scientific collaboration, a historic milestone that proved that, even in chaos, hope can guide the way. An epic conclusion to a mission that was nearly lost in 1970. In Can Tho, Vietnam, these women represent a harsh and complex reality amid the conflict raging across the region. Captured through the lens of Philip Jones Griffith, the image reveals not only daily survival, but also the untold stories of those living in the shadow of war. Their gazes and postures reflect strength and vulnerability in equal measure. A window into a world where humanity resists in the most unexpected places. A photo that invites reflection on the human cost of conflict. In 1970, Stevie Wonder visited a school for blind children in London, sharing his light and talent with those living similar experiences. His presence radiated hope and joy, showing how music can unite and transform lives. This image captures a moment of deep connection and sensitivity, where an icon inspires a new generation, a gesture full of humanity that transcends barriers and celebrates inclusion, a snapshot that speaks of empathy and creative power. On May 4, 1970, the National Guard opened fire on student protesters at Kent State University in Ohio, in one of the darkest and most tragic moments of the Vietnam era. This brutal image captures the unexpected violence and the devastating impact of state repression on a generation raising its voice for peace. The tragedy left 4 dead and dozens injured, marking a turning point in American social struggle. A powerful visual reminder of the human cost of war and protest. Before becoming a Hollywood star, Harrison Ford worked as a carpenter in 1970, mastering his tools with the same skill he would later display on screen. This image reveals a more humble, everyday side of the actor, far from the spotlight and fame. A reminder that even legends have simple beginnings, and that talent can emerge from the most unexpected places. A moment that captures the calm before the great leap to global fame. In the 1970s, an Afghan hunter poses with a fox mask, merging tradition and mystery in an image steeped in symbolism. The mask not only protects or deceives, but connects with ancient rituals and the deep connection with nature. This photo captures a moment in which man almost becomes a creature, reflecting the rich culture and resilient spirit of Afghanistan, a portrait that blends legend, survival, and art in a single gesture. In 1970, the streets of Detroit were filled with strength and passion with the Women's Liberation Coalition March. Women of all ages and backgrounds joined their voices to demand equality rights and justice in a society still dominated by prejudice. This image captures the spirit of revolution and hope that fueled the feminist movement of the time, a vibrant moment that changed the course of history and opened doors for new generations. The fight for freedom had a face and a name in the 1960s and 1970s. Mogadishu shone like a vibrant jewel on the coast of the Horn of Africa, blending colonial architecture with the daily lives of its people. This image shows bustling streets, colorful markets, and a city enjoying a time of growth and hope before the conflicts that followed. A frozen moment that reflects the warmth and cultural richness of Somalia at its peak. Traveling through this photo is to discover a past full of promise and living traditions. In the 1970s, Venice Beach was the epicenter of freestyle and youth culture, and this roller skater embodies that vibrant, carefree energy. With agile movements and a relaxed attitude, she glided through the sun, sand, and sea breeze, creating a spectacle of freedom and fun. The photo captures the rebellious and creative spirit of a generation reinventing leisure and personal expression. A moment full of movement and life in one of California's most iconic places. This image of Piccadilly Circus in the 1970s, found among your grandparents' old slides, is a vibrant window into London at that time. The bright lights and bustle of the square reflect a vibrant city, where modernity was beginning to take shape amid classic buildings and dynamic crowds. Viewing this photo is like traveling back in time, feeling the urban pulse and the nostalgic charm of an iconic place, a family memory that captures a unique moment steeped in history. In the midst of the brutal Cambodian civil conflict between 1970 and 1975, this young warrior bravely fought for the Lon Nol regime against the Khmer Rouge. Her steady gaze and defiant stance reflect the courage and tragedy of a generation caught in the grip of war. This powerful image shows how innocence confronts violence, transforming a young girl into a symbol of resilience and survival, a moment that encapsulates toughness and courage in times of chaos. On June 12, 1970, Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher Doc Ellis threw a no-hitter against San Diego in a legendary feat, and he confessed to doing it while under the influence of LSD. He claimed not to feel the ball, and that his catcher wore reflective tape on his fingers to help him pick up the signs. This colorized photo captures the athlete at his peak, a blend of talent and madness that defied all expectations, an incredible story that became a baseball legend, and shows that reality can be as surprising as a fairy tale. In 1970, Sandra Brown broke barriers by becoming the first black woman on the Oakland police force. In this image, she is instructed in handling a shotgun, symbolizing her courage and determination to forge a path in a traditionally male-dominated environment. Her presence marked an important shift toward diversity and inclusion in law enforcement. This photo captures a moment of learning and empowerment, reflecting the strength of a pioneer, a symbol of struggle and progress in times of change. In 1970, United Airlines flight attendants were the elegant and friendly face of air travel, combining professionalism with unmistakable style. This image captures a stewardess in the golden age of commercial aviation, when flying was synonymous with glamour and sophistication. Her impeccable uniform and warm smile convey the excitement of discovering the world from above. A moment that evokes nostalgia for a time when service and experience were as important as the destination, a portrait of style and dedication in the air. In 1970, the South Bronx was a symbol of struggle and resilience amidst urban decay and growing poverty. This image shows worn streets, dilapidated buildings, and a community facing enormous social and economic challenges. However, it was also a hotbed of culture and creativity, where hip-hop was beginning to emerge amid the noise and chaos. A raw and real portrait that reflects both the toughness and the indomitable spirit of a neighborhood in transformation, a vital piece of New York history.